Transport 2 in a lot of ways retreads the same ground as the previous installment. Now sometimes that's not a bad thing, but when it comes to this action film, I felt a little underwhelmed to be honest. Once again directed by Louis Leterrier, now taking place in Miami, Florida, Frank Martin, he's a temporarily chauffeur driver for a wealthy family. But trouble arises when a kidnapping plot happens and there's a ransom. And from there was a film that was just downright awful, from the plot to the characters, and just a few other issues that I thought could have been vastly improved to make this film better in my opinion. And for a lot of the action scenes, sure, they're cool and all, but I felt like this movie does too much, and the story gets compromised because of it. And the lack of character development really hurt this film as well. Like, why should I care what these characters go through if I don't know much about them? And because of that, a large part of this film is boring, and sure, it does have its entertaining moments, but for the most part, I just thought this one could have been much better if they just fixed a few key areas I had a problem with. Jason Statham once again is great in his role as Frank Martin, but it's hard for me to believe that Frank would show for a rich family driving their kid to and from school. It's just something that I want to have bought his character doing in the first film. And it felt like it was a regression of the character. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm all for change in a character, especially when it comes for them to be a better person overall. But what was wrong with how Frank was beforehand? I thought one of his rules was no names. But then again, the woman he was with in the first film knew his name was Frank. But anyway, I honestly think that a lot of this film had some cool action scenes better, in my opinion. Like, it's cool. It's unrealistic. A lot of this action is, but it makes for some dumb entertainment. Like, one thing I would get behind is that how this film did focus on action just a tad more, even though the story was unconvincing and just, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Overall, though, I think that Lola, beautiful but deadly assassin that she is, not much to her character, but she's there. And then there's the antagonist, Johnny Shalani, pretty weak villain to be honest. Like, I understood his motivations, but it's just his character wasn't properly developed enough for me to care. Is he a better villain than the first antagonist from the first movie? Not really. I mean, they're both pretty bad. None of them really stood out in my opinion. But at least this one right here had more to do compared to the villain from the first film. One thing I'm glad this film didn't do was try to force a relationship between Audrey and Frank. I'm glad they didn't go that route because it would have felt odd and just out of place. Like, Audrey, she's not a great character anyway, and quite frankly, the whole plot of what this film is, yes, it's absurd. It's all over the place. The story is not great, but at least, they try to do some interesting things with this. It's just too mixed results. And I'm going to spoil the ending, so spoiler warning. But when Frank walks away, he doesn't even say goodbye to the rich family or their son. I was like, that's odd. Why would he do that? Why would he not say, see you around or something? I mean, it could have been written better in my opinion. Overall, do I think this is a bad movie? Of course it is. But I also think it's a dumb, entertaining film you can just turn your brain off and have a good time with. One of those films you could just not think a whole much about when it comes to plot and just enjoy this action film for what it is. And yes, it could have been better, but I have seen worse action movies out there. I'm giving this film a 5 out of 10. Nothing special about this one amongst the other action movies out there. It's generic. Plus the subplot of Audrey and her husband was so annoying. I don't care for this family dynamic. We as the audience came to watch Frank Martin kick some ass and look cool while doing it. And I know there are some people out there that do like this film, but I just thought this one was generic and nothing really different than the numerous action films that have released over the last few decades that have better stories. At the end of the day, at least this movie has its entertaining moments, but they are few and far in between. And that is my review of Transporter 2. Okay, leave your comments down below in the section and let me know what you think about this movie. My review of Transporter 3 will be happening sometime in the near future. Alright, this is Slim Guy 172 saying peace out.